Hello, everybody. This is Nancy Novak. I'm Chief Innovation Officer for Compass Data Centers, and once again, I'm thrilled to be a part of the Groundbreak family with Procore. Procore always does such a fantastic job of bringing our industry together and teaching us the things that we need to know to keep our industry exciting and cutting edge. So I get to talk about one of my favorite topics today, and that is offsite construction. And why it matters. First off, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Nancy Novak, like I said. I'm Chief Innovation Officer for Compass Data Centers. I spent my whole career in the building industry, and I have a very diverse portfolio. I've actually moved two of my children 17 times from coast to coast to do everything from launch facilities to airports, hospitals, museums, large government facilities, and now I get to be in the world of data centers, which I'm fascinated by because the world of data is absolutely fascinating. And of course, the demand that we see today, especially in today's COVID environment, has made the data center industry off the charts from a demand standpoint. So we're very, very thrilled and we're very blessed to be a part of this industry. And on a personal note, I have 3 kids, all adults, and a wonderful husband, and we live in the Northern Virginia area, and I speak about advancing women all over the country. I am an advisory council member of the iMasons, which is a great global philanthropic organization about infrastructure, and I dedicate a lot of my time to the advancement of women in business. So to start us out, I'm going to go over the agenda. I'm going to touch a little bit on the history of offsite construction. I'm going to go into what the components of offsite construction look like. Then I'll get into some of the current state and the statistics around that, some of the technologies that have impacted offsite construction in a good way. Then we're going to discuss a little bit about what industrialized approach to construction means. And then, of course, we're going to go through the benefits. And I'll give you some resources, and then we can have questions and answers. So let's start out with the history of offsite construction. Believe it or not, the first documented prefabricated home was in London in the 1830s, almost 200 years ago. Then about 10 years later, modular construction made its way to the US. That was, of course, because of the gold rush and having to build houses quickly on the West Coast. One of the most famous structures that still stands today is the Crystal Palace, built for Great Britain's exhibition, and this was done in mid-century 1800s, around 1851. And then, of course, we can't forget that in the early 1900s here in the U.S., there was the rise of catalog homes. Sears and Roebuck sold more than 500,000 prefab homes during about 3 decades during that time. So that gets us to about mid-century and World War II era here in the U.S. And of course, now here we are talking about it, over 60 years later. You might have noticed that a lot of the structures I talked about were residential. And in the U.S., residential is still lagging behind many of the other countries when it comes to offsite manufacturing. In fact, Sweden is the highest with about 80% of homes being done offsite. I would say China is the second, more closer to 30%, and the US is down in about the 5% range. However, the good news is that we have other ways of doing offsite in the commercial world that has been gaining speed. So I want to tell you a little bit about my own personal history when it comes to offsite construction and kind of like some of the reasons why we've seen it a bit of a slow roll here and why I think we need to change that. So about 3 years ago, I did a conference and I was a keynote for MEP users conference for a large tech firm. And I had a large group of mostly men, and we started talking about modern methods and agile ways of doing construction. And of course, offsite came up. And I pretty much said, well, in my history, I've done a lot of different types of work, and I've also done a lot of design build jobs. So let me tell you one of the sticking points behind why we're struggling, one of many, by the way, getting to a normalization of offsite manufacturing. So here's how we do design build typically in our industry. We sit down with our clients and we ask them how they want to use their facilities, and we look at a lot of the aesthetics, and we look at spatial ways of using it and functionality. Stocking, blocking, and looking at adjacencies and trying to figure out how big the rooms have to be, and what kind of space that they need for break rooms and offices, or hospital rooms, and and classrooms, and so on and so forth. And once we get all the space figured out and the client says, I love this, this will work perfectly for us, then we turn over to the infrastructure guys and all the MPs, and we say, okay, whatever's left over, you guys can put your stuff there, right? And of course, it's got a great laugh, because it's they've seen it too many times, and it really didn't occur to us that when we're doing our design management, that we should start focusing on infrastructure first, because that is the most critical part of our facilities. And again, remember, I've done a lot of work over my career, and so I've studied labor quite intensely. And one of the things that always shocks people is when you look at large commercial buildings, whether it's a hospital, a school, an office building, or almost any type of a facility, the large, what we call universal space, or the big real estate on the job, represents about 25%, give or take, of the labor force that has to go and execute that. All of the rest of it is back of house. It's shocking. And I just wanted to point out too that in the beginning of my career, which has been lengthy, the MEP trades would represent somewhere in the 25 to 30% range of the value of a project. Now that has changed. It's well into the 45 to 50% range, and of course in data centers, it's upwards of 70+%. So focusing on those trades is super critical. And I'm going to get to some slides that show where we are with the current state of this. But I just want to remind everybody that it doesn't make sense to only focus on things like bathroom pods, head walls, and things that can be repeatable, when most of the labor and most of the cost of our projects are in the infrastructure. So here's the good news. The good news is that our mechanical and electrical subs are way ahead of us. They have taken huge strides in trying to get ahead of the curve by doing offsite manufacturing and subcomponents, and many times interdisciplinary components. And I love it, because right now we have we still, to this, even though the construction industry has slowed down maybe a little bit with the COVID, not all areas and sectors have slowed down, but we still have an issue with our trades, and the shortage of trades is not going to go away. Right now, the average electrician is right around 50. There is not a huge pipeline, getting ready to go take their place. So again, doing more with less is going to become more and more critical in the construction industry. One of the things I do like to point out, and being a part of the data center world, it's been a huge advantage for me, because I started really seeing things differently. We build for the large hyperscalers in the world, and those are the big five, which are Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, right? So and honestly, they represent about 25% of the S&P. They're huge, and construction is new for them. Meaning data centers, which is the largest part of the construction they do, and they have headquarters and they have stores, but really data centers, that's where it's at. And they're building lots of data centers, and they want to grow, and they want to close the digital divide and provide internet and infrastructure to everybody globally. And that's a lot of expansion, right? So we all know that money is not keeping them from expanding. It's really our industry, it's construction. And so having these major firms and global powers kind of new in our business and learning fast, failing fast, figuring things out has been kind of exciting, and it's also kind of pushing us. So we look at what's right and what's wrong, and how we've been building things for many, many years. And one of the things we're sad about, honestly, is the fact that we have not really increased production over the past 30 years. I mean, the statistics are there. So it just makes sense that we have to start looking at how do we do business differently. So you've got the attracting the skilled trades, which we desperately need, because you can only put so many bodies on a job, and right now it's hard to find them, especially the ones who are highly skilled. And then there's also just having to do more with less in an environment that will allow you to have more predictable work. So again, this is one of the things I wanted to point out is the MEP trades are ahead of their game. We're thrilled about that because they're the hardest trade to actually take into an offsite environment. And so having them be at the tip of the spear has been, really good for the industry. The reason I say that is, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, those are typically done, schematically and isometrically. They're not done to scale. So it's sometimes it's easier for us to see things in scale, and for them to take a design drawing and then convert that into a fabricatable component that's to scale and also, fits within walls, ceilings, underfloors, and other disciplines is tricky. And there's been a lot of workarounds that have been developed to help that process. And I've toured the entire, coast to coast, trying to find as many factories as I can to go see where they're at. And it's super exciting to see how the tradespeople are really contributing to getting better and better and better at pulling things offsite and into these environments. So I want to talk a little bit about the current state of the offsite construction world. So right now, I would say in the U.S., like I said, housing not so much, hasn't really caught on like it has in other countries. But commercially, we're right at that 25% stage of where all jobs are doing something in the prefab and offsite manufacturing environment. And pretty much 90% of the contractors who are major contractors doing work are saying that they are working towards getting more offsite components on their jobs. Now that doesn't mean it's fully modular, but it definitely is. It definitely is improving. As far as doing the components that are like electrical rooms or bathrooms or kitchens or head walls or security suites versus a full modularized power center, which is what we do for our data centers, or even in the multifamily or residential high rises, they bring in entire apartment units, in a full modularized state. So Offsite is many different layers, and the prefab is just as important because it helps organize the tools. It puts all of the hangers together. It puts the widgets everybody needs. You're not running around the job site looking for them. So any way in which you can do something where you can make it more efficient through offsite, prefab, and modularized construction is the right way to go. And we are headed in that direction, and I sincerely feel like the demands that we have on our industry, which are really good for us, are going to force us into that even heavier. So some of the technologies that are affected by offsite are things like robotics, artificial intelligence for sure, augmented reality, virtual reality, exoskeletons, things. So, and what I love about this is it helps neutralize the brute strength that's required in the field, and that's for both men and women, obviously, because my husband is an electrician and it's hard work, and that's why having the average age of an electrician at age 50 is a bit scary because it's hard on them. And so when you can get into an environment where you can have machines doing the heavy lifting, or some type of analog, gear that you can wear that will help you not, injure yourself, or, and then of course, I like to talk about the fact that if it neutralizes that heavy lifting component and the brute strength component, then it's more inviting for, women, which I think is super exciting. Right now, only about 3% of the trades are female, and that's quite dismal, and it's sad because it's a great living. The trades make a really good living. They're highly respected. They're professional. They're innovative. I love working with them, and I would just love to see more women get to be included in this industry. An offsite manufacturing plant has many benefits, and one of them is the fact that it can become more inclusive. And you know what's strange? I was getting ready to do this keynote. I was like, I need to go do some research and make sure, I kind of, cover some new area. And so I was looking at the benefits, obviously. And when you go through the benefits, it will tell you cost, schedule, safety, and quality, which are the typical benefits that you see for almost every website, and every study that's been done will say those are the big ones. And those are always the big ones that we measure ourselves by in construction anyway. And recently they've added sustainability, which I think is fascinating and wonderful, because offsite manufacturing greatly reduces the waste on a job site, and it can also be super helpful when it comes to geography and how far away you have to go to get your materials. So truck time, and there's lots of different layers of being able to be more sustainable. But the one thing that I could not find in all of my research was making the industry more inclusive. And it was kind of mind-blowing to me. I was like, wow, this is such a great opportunity to be able to bring more inclusive, not just for women, but for other minorities who are not typically in the space. It's easier in a controlled environment to have regular hours, to put a daycare there, to not have to worry about the long commutes, to do better training, to have better oversight, to make it more welcoming. And you know what? White men like this too. I mean, they have kids they want to see. They have ball games to go to. If you tell them, we're going to put you in this factory setting where you can get home every night for dinner and you don't have to leave at, 3:30 in the morning to beat the traffic. I mean, that's a great thing for everybody. So I really want to, focus on the fact that this can make our business way more inclusive. And obviously, when you have a more inclusive business, you have a more innovative business. A more innovative business becomes a more profitable business. So I would love to start seeing some of the research, the papers, the studies, the websites, kind of focus on the fact that we need more talent. We want more talent. And Offsite is one big doorway for us to be able to get that with one fell swoop, by really promoting that and making it more desirable for the not just for women and men and minorities, but also for the younger generation, because the younger generation likes technology, and the technology we have is very cool. So that's something that I added to my benefit slide, was the diversity factor, and I'm going to show you some resources that you can look at to help you with that. There was one topic though that I forgot to mention that I wanted to bring up, and that was the industrialized approach to construction. Really what this is it's setting a cadence for scheduling with a more predictably. And and it's best if you can have no overlapping of trades. That's not always 100% possible, but really focusing on a job where you can bring in components so everybody knows ahead and behind what to expect every day. When we did the Pentagon renovation, we got down to having zero punch lists in a lot of the universal spaces because they were very predictable. We could tell, the trades knew what was expected, they knew where to go, they knew where to be. It made it a much more pleasant working environment. And when you can achieve a zero punch list by, rewarding, the trades to focus on that and have a repeatable way of doing business, then that really says something. So think about an assembly line in a manufacturing plant where things are predictable and they come through in a sequence. If you can start setting that up on your job sites, it's a huge benefit. It doesn't have to be the whole job site. It can just be key components, especially if it's a hospital or an office building with, lots of, similar spaces. Even if you just touch that, little bit of work, like, the head wall or the bathroom pod, it'll at least set a cadence up for the other trades to know when to expect these things. There's just way more control in an offsite environment for you to have, better quality products, a much safer work environment to, where you're not up on, scaffold, and you're not, leaning over, and you don't have large fall hazards, and, a never ending change of environment like you do on a regular job site. So safety is quality. And of course, the statistics are telling us that you can shave a great deal of time off the job site. I know that at Compass Data Centers, we're very proud of the fact that we can deliver the amount of megawatts we can in such a short period of time because of the offsite components that we put into our buildings. And we do it on a single shift. And I think that's super important because nowadays, especially with data center construction, everybody's on a double shift or even sometimes a triple shift. And, there you have it. The trades that are, very hard to get. And then you're, trying to run them 3 shifts and wearing everybody out. I mean, it's not a good picture. It doesn't make for a safer or more productive and efficient project. So taking things into the offsite environment can help you kind of normalize a regular shift on your construction site, which I think is a huge benefit for any project and any owner. and obviously for the tradespeople. So I encourage you guys to look into the offsite manufacturing and all the technologies that go with it. And I would love to provide you with some resources on basically the women in the business. so the slide that I have up here for resources, I've got, of course, infrastructure masons, and there are many groups within infrastructure masons that focus on diversity. WIMCO, W2F, Above Glass Ceilings is a great resource to look at for, a repository of information and kind of connecting the dots. And of course, NAWIC, one of the oldest and, best organizations for women in construction. And there's many more as well, but I just wanted to highlight a few of them. And I would love to take questions from anybody who's interested in understanding how they can make their workforce more diverse. And if they have any other questions on, the benefits and the business case around offsite manufacturing. Again, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to seeing your questions in the chat box. And I hope that you guys have a great ground break. Thanks so much.